All right, welcome back to First and Short, your first place to get short bits of college football news and analysis. Today is September 18th, Thursday, and Aaron, today's a special episode. Do you know why?
No, tell me why.
Today's episode 10. We have made it to double digits. Who would have thought we would have made it this? We would have made it this far. Yeah, double digit episodes. Still double digit subscribers on YouTube. So, if you're listening, we're gonna pause for 2 seconds. Go ahead and just subscribe real quick. All right, let's get back into it. Hopefully you subscribe right there. All right, we have a jam-packed show. We are going to talk about the UCLA and Virginia Tech coach, firings and what that kind of fallout looks like in terms of the transfer portal and how that affects the players. We're going to do a review of quarter one of the season. We're 3 games in. The regular season is 12 games, so that's the first quarter. So we're going to check out what's been good, what's been bad, and what's been ugly there. We're going to build out your Couch Potato Saturday slate of games to watch, break down a few games. We think the big ones, the needle movers, and we're going to give you our picks. And then, of course, we are going to give you our underdog pick of the week, which we are 3-1 in. So let's go ahead and get started here. We've got a lot of games to cover. But first, let's talk about these coaches being fired. So UCLA, we talked about that last week. Actually, the day we released our episode, I think it was Sunday, Brent Pry, he got fired from Virginia Tech. So what does that mean for the players, right? So it actually opens up a 30-day window for players to enter their name into the NCAA transfer portal. They can still, this is a special case type of thing. They can actually still enter the portal after the season. So if they want to, they can play out the rest of this season, and then enter in after the season ends. If they put their name in now, and a team can contact them, but they won't be able to play for a new team. So Virginia, a player from Virginia, I think one cornerback actually put his name in already from Virginia Tech. He put his name in. Let's say Nebraska reaches out to him, and they do their due diligence and they talk. He won't be able to play for that team this year. But starting in the spring, he can go there. I don't know about UCLA. I know they have the interim coach, but there are some considerations for the Virginia Tech job. Obviously, you have Shane Beamer, whose dad whose dad coached at Virginia Tech. And you got Michael Vick, who played at Virginia Tech. Out of those two, there's a few more. I mean, the internet comes up with rumors all the time. Out of those two, Aaron, do you feel like either of those could possibly make the cut and become the new Hokies head coach?
Sure. So yeah, right now I'd have to lean towards Beamer. He's definitely turned the program around in South Carolina. Seems like he loves it, but I think his roots are in Virginia Tech. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some, talks amongst the two going on pretty soon.
Yeah, I would say, the roots are there. I don't know if it's necessarily a better job, leaving the SEC for Virginia Tech, but I would, he has head coaching experience, whereas Michael Vick has less than one. Right. So,
yep.
Some news as we were preparing for this episode, some more news dropped. Actually, the NCAA actually voted to eliminate the spring transfer portal window. So this is the transfer portal window that happened after, spring practice. I've heard, I haven't heard from any coaches. I've heard that coaches say it's tough to spend time going through spring practice, spring training, all that. And then you got guys dipping out the door. It's hard for coaches to kind of be like, okay, what did we spend all this time? We spent this time thinking we had 4 tight ends, but now we only have 2, right? Yeah. And so that changes up the game plan for the upcoming season. So I think this helps a lot of coaches. When the window will actually be open, that one window, that's still under consideration. Whenever it is, I don't think everyone's going to be happy with it, but that's just what it is. The idea is that the window right now will be open after the bowl games wrap up. But the teams that are still in the playoffs, they won't necessarily get a chance to spend the manpower and the man hours to go get the players that are now in the portal. Because they're focused on games that are still ahead of them. So I don't know, Aaron, if you have any thoughts, but I was thinking maybe this increases some parity in the sport. Do you have any thoughts on one portal window versus 2?
I definitely think, it's going to create a little bit of calmness to the chaos, right?
Yeah.
this is still a very, very new system. Everybody's trying to get a grasp of. So um, I think it'll create a little bit more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, players to actually try throughout the year,
Mm,
instead of, the initial, hey, we're going to redshirt you, or hey, this guy beat you on the spot. Well, it's like
yeah,
now, if it's not that window, you almost have to stay and work through it,
another year. Yeah,
you know? So, yep. It'll be interesting.
yeah, cool.
Yep, yep. So yeah, next on the list, right? So we are through 3 weeks of college football. It's been
Time's flying.
amazing. Yeah, yeah. And so, we're in we're through Q1, so I thought why not go through a review of what we've digested through the season so far, right? So we have the good, the bad, and the ugly. Mash, can you talk to us about, what's been good from your point of view?
Yeah. I think the good, this has been a mix of like all the restructuring of the major, power conferences. I think this is also a mix of people just trying to get as much TV money as possible. But big brands are playing non-conference games earlier in the season and throughout the whole season, right? Just some examples that I got written down here. Week 1 obviously had Texas visiting Ohio State. That was blockbuster television. Week 2, Michigan visited Oklahoma. Wisconsin visited Alabama week 3 last week. Week 4 upcoming, Michigan State is visiting USC. These aren't games that if we go back 15, 20 years, these aren't games that you typically see. If you did see any of these, you would see maybe one of these per season, right? We've had one of these big matchup in terms of brands and how big these audiences are every week. And so I think that's been fun to watch on television. I think that gives us a more realistic idea of like how teams are actually built and how good they'll be, throughout the rest of the season. So the AP voters can be a little bit more accurate in who they vote on. And so, yeah, I think that's been the good. Aaron, what do you think's been bad about, quarter 1?
Sure, so throughout the preparation for the season and watching, the days get closer and closer. Everybody's excited about all the different things football provides. And I think the most dependent thing a team can depend on is their quarterback. So the bad
Mm-hmm.
for me would have to be the quarterback woes that have happened, right? We we've poured a lot of time into, hoping that, quarterbacks for our prospective teams are going to be the guy, the Heisman hopeful, the standout player of the year. And so, I'm just going to name off a list of quarterbacks that I have that, teams were hoping for a lot
Mm-hmm.
this year from. And I'm going to name off the investment that was, put towards them.
Mm-hmm.
Not even just like, from a physical, mental standpoint. I'm talking about an actual financial standpoint,
Dollars
right?
and cents.
Exactly. NIL. So, I got 6 quarterbacks. You got Arch Manning, right? We know he's had his accuracy struggles and just finding his confidence and groove through the first 3 games right now. He's, got $6.8 million invested into him.
Mm-hmm.
You got Caden Salter at Colorado. I mean, the guy lost his starting spot in week 2 or 3, right? I
Yeah.
mean, he may or may not start this week, but that's not a good look. He's got 600K invested in him. You got Nico at UCLA. Terrible start right now for the
Yeah.
Bruins.
He
0
got the coach
3.
fired.
Yep. Coach is fired. His Tennessee Vols look like a promising college football playoff contender,
Yeah.
and they're investing $1.2 million in him. You got DJ Lagway at Florida, $3.8 million, and he threw 5 interceptions last week. And then you got Jalen Rashada. He was in the portal, and teams were like Florida were potentially promising him $14 million over 4 years. Darian Minshaw from Duke, or at Duke right now, they're having a 1-2 start, and they lost to his former school Tulane in the recent weeks. So out of those 6 quarterbacks, that's a total of $34.4 million in NIL. So my take on all of this is, all of these quarterbacks, they're hyped up and they're paid the money hoping that they're going to execute. But I think what we're seeing right now is, a new kind of quarterback fatigue. Again, not physical, not psychological, but the fatigue of them not meeting the expectations that we want to
Mm.
see,
Mm-hmm.
and we've invested into them. So these young men, they're not just leading offenses; they're managing brands now, media obligations. They're managing fans' expectations, and so now they're getting that pro level scrutiny. When the performance dips, the criticism is going to hit harder, and when the criticism hits harder, it's because the dollar signs are speaking louder and louder. It's
Mm.
just like, why is my team investing this much into this guy and he's not executing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So that's, my bad for the first 3 weeks of college football. Now let's get into the ugly. You kind
Mm.
of hit on it, and we've hit on it, in the most recent episode. Um, it's, how ugly the coaches' hot seats are getting right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we had UCLA's head coach just got the can, Virginia Tech's head coach. And we could see more throughout the season. Billy
Probably will.
Napier, yeah, Billy Napier at Florida right now. The team, I mean, it looks like the morale is lost, and
Mm-hmm.
they're having a start that no fan wanted or would hope for. They were hoping for a turnaround year, and I don't know if he's going to have his locker room one to be able to turn around now. They got Miami again this week, and so
Right. Yeah, their
it just
schedule
looks like
isn't getting any easier.
yeah, looks like it's getting hotter and hotter, especially when they get into SEC play. Yep. And then you got also got Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. I believe last year they went winless in their Big 12 play,
Mm.
and the season's not getting to a better start. They recently lost to Oregon. I think it was 69-3.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I think what makes this ugly is like these are huge brand. Like, first of all, Mike Gundy's been there forever. I know Billy Napier's kind of a newer guy, but like these are big brands. They have such huge expectations, and there's so many of them that are coaches that are like close to the getting fired, and are getting fired. And so I think that's what makes it ugly versus like typical year. I mean, we have coaches fired every year and moving around every year, but this year just feels more. And I think the as we're entering into year, I don't know, 4 or 5 of the transfer portal, right? Like it's going to continue being that way, I think.
exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on. We've got a few games to set up for you guys. We're going to start bright and early, 12 p.m. We've got number 17 Texas Tech visiting number 16 Utah. Texas Tech. We've mentioned that was my dark horse to win the Big 12. Their offense has been. They're averaging 58 points a game. Did you know that, Aaron?
I didn't.
Quarterback Baron Morton, and Raiders offense. They're averaging 58 points a game, but against kind of silly competition. But the Morton, he is putting up 11 touchdowns to 1 interception. Like that's his ratio. So I think he's very efficient. He leads a
Mhm.
very up tempo offense, and the question I think for this game will be more so, can they sustain that level of tempo attack against a disciplined Utah team that loves to control the clock?
Mhm.
Their defense is very good, very stout. They will be playing at Utah, right? The Utes are only giving up 15 points a game, and their run defense is very top notch. They've actually only given up 2 rushing touchdowns the whole season. Texas Tech's running backs, they're averaging 5.9 yards per carry. So I think that will be a good good on good matchup right there. Utah's offense, they're top 15 in scoring, and they're second in third down conversion, and they're averaging 200 rushing yards per game. So I think that all kind of goes back to that, provides evidence to that point that I made, that they love to control the clock. So when you have a team that slows the game down, makes the other team play on their terms, going up against a team that likes to score fast, score many times as possible, that will be a very interesting dynamic to watch there. Their direct counters to each other. I think in terms of turnovers, Texas Tech has a +3 turnover margin, so they are very opportunistic. They will try to they get more turnovers than they cause. So we'll see there. I think with the home field advantage, the Utah Utes are always a very strong team, very very tough team to play against. I think Utah wins this one. I think Texas Tech will get their first loss of the season. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's just the feeling that I'm getting. I think Texas Tech still has a very good offense, a very decent defense, but Utah just that vice grip that they're going to be able to put on Texas Tech. They just haven't faced the same level of competition, and I think that'll come back to bite them. Do you have any thoughts there?
Sure, sure. So yeah, um, I'm gonna have to disagree with you there. I'm a really, really big fan of Baron Morton. That offense is explosive, like you said, averaging 58 points a game. I think it's going to be a shootout. It's my favorite type of Big 12 game. It's just a scoring battle. See who's
Yeah.
going to make the mistake first. And I think Texas Tech is going to be the team to be left standing. It's,
Okay.
it's going to be close, but I think they're going to win a close one.
Typically, when there's a matchup where it's like a high scoring offense versus a really good defense, I typically choose the defensive team, and I'm
Hmm.
usually wrong. So you're probably right.
We'll see.
Well, yeah, we'll move on to the 3:30 game. We're gonna do a little bit more of a deep dive here. Number 22 Auburn is going up to Oklahoma. So obviously the big storyline here that you'll see throughout the weekend is Jackson Arnold's return to Norman. If you guys remember, Jackson Arnold was the quarterback of the future there, and then he quickly became quarterback of the past, and the coach passed on him. He left and is now at Auburn. Fortunately, since then, I think he's found his confidence so far. So I don't think the crowd will be able to shake him up too much. He's led his team, Auburn, I mean, to 3 straight games of 30 or more points, which actually Auburn hasn't accomplished since 2009. So big turnaround on offense for Auburn, and Jackson Arnold is at the head of that. His dual threat ability, I think, will pair very well with John Mateers. I think this will be a very fun game to watch from a quarterback standpoint. He's got over 500 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns. He's pretty good with his legs, 196 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. He's actually, I think, the second leading rusher on the Auburn team. They're going to have to rely on that strength of running the ball if they want to win. I think they as a team they have 200 more rushing yards as a team versus passing yards. I think as Auburn gets into their SEC schedule, they're going to have to start using Jeremiah Cobb and Damari Alston more. I don't know if Jackson Arnold should or can sustain that many tackles from Oklahoma's defense if he's going to be, running the ball so much. Um, so while Jackson Arnold does have Georgia Tech transfer, Eric Singleton and Cam Coleman, sophomore standout to throw to,
Hmm.
Oklahoma's pass defense is just, too good. Their defense, I know Aaron's going to talk a little bit more about their defense, but I just wanted to highlight their top 5 in opponent completion percentage, pass yards per game, and yards per pass for their opponents. So defense is really good on Oklahoma's side. On Auburn's defensive side, the coordinator DJ Durkin, he's known for making his defenses very physical, very disciplined, very disruptive, and they're going to have to stick to these principles, if they want to stop John Mateer and the Sooners. Um, their rush defense is elite. They're ranked second in rush yards per game. They actually they haven't allowed a rushing touchdown yet this season. So you can thank players like Keldrick Falk, Malik Blockton, and linebacker Xavier Atkins, who actually is leading the team in tackles. Um, Keys to winning this game on defense: they have 11 sacks so far. They're gonna have to at least get close to John Mateer and cause issues for him. They can't give up explosive plays, which we all know Mateer loves to go for. Um, but Auburn's secondary has been a little shaky at times, so they're going to have to lean into being disciplined and not biting on play action. Um, those are the keys for them to win. I'm going to give my
Hmm.
pick later, but Aaron, do you want to talk a little bit more about Oklahoma?
Sure, sure. So yeah, you mentioned Oklahoma's all explosive offense, right? They are a big play machine. They have a lot of speed at the skill positions, and then the quarterback John Mateer, he's a threat to run or pass at any point in time. Um, they've been scoring on average well over 40 points a game, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And Auburn's defense, uh, they're not just good. They're pretty elite, but can they keep up with this type of scoring?
Hmm.
Can they stop this? Right. The guy I want to key in on is John Mateer though. He's the guy who's going to he's been making immediate impacts on stepping into Norman. He's a dual threat quarterback who shows a lot of poise, and he's getting comparisons to Baker Mayfield in his time in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
He's already had a signature win against Michigan. He had about, I think, 275 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. So he's proving that, he has the ability to make elite decisions. And, there was a saying that I've heard in high school, and I think he's the guy that's perfect for this saying. Big time players show up in big time games. And I think he's that type of caliber player. The only question is can he lead his team through the gauntlet as SEC play begins? So can he continue to lead his team through these tough games and continue to put up these crazy numbers?
Yeah.
In terms of how efficient they are at offense, they convert a lot on third down, 50% of the time. This keeps the drive alive. It wears down the opposing team's defense.
Right.
So if Auburn can't get off the field, it's going to be a long day. On the other side of the ball, they got a defensive front that is just, crazy. Their head coach, Venables, he calls the unit, hungry, humble, and a high standard, right? They forced 15 3-and-outs on 35 possessions. So that's pretty crazy. So 42% of the time, they're causing teams to go 3-and-out.
Wow.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, though, they haven't forced a turnover at all this year. Yep. So some players to watch on that front seven, that's the defensive line and the linebackers. You got to watch Sammy Omosigo. He's a linebacker that can get sideline to sideline and cause a lot of disruption. He's got great speed. And then you got R. Mason Thomas. He's a defensive end who's an explosive pass rusher, and he's going to cause some havoc. Yeah. Just listening to your deep dive and diagnosis, and then kind of doing my own research on Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to lean towards Oklahoma. They've had the challenge already this year, and I think they're just going to continue that high level of play and competitiveness into this week. And I think they beat Auburn. What's your take?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. They've had a challenge, whereas Auburn hasn't, and Auburn just has too many ifs that they need to accomplish in order to win this game. I'm gonna go Oklahoma as well. Another 3:30 game that we're gonna have is number 21 Michigan at Nebraska. This will be a fun one to watch, I think, on a secondary screen. These are two solid teams with very balanced, offenses and defenses. I think a key few units to watch. Michigan's defensive line. It's one of the best in the country, honestly, and they've been living in opponents' backfields, generating a lot of pressure on quarterbacks and stuffing the run. That'll be a great test for Dylan Raiola. Or is his name Patrick Mahomes? No, Dylan Raiola. Yeah. But Nebraska's defense is also pretty good, which will be great because I'm looking at my stats here. They allow less than 120 yards per game, and that will be very important to rely on because Michigan loves to use Justice Haynes, and their quarterback too, honestly, to run quite a bit. So that's like both the defensive side of both of these teams. The quarterback play for Michigan and Nebraska, they're both smart. They're both trusted by their coaches and their teammates. Michigan's quarterback, Bryce Underwood, he's a first-year true freshman. Dylan Raiola, he's a second year. But he's made a lot of huge strides this year. He has a high completion percentage, 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I think Dane Key, the transfer from Kentucky, he's been a huge addition as a weapon for him as at wide receiver. Bryce Underwood, he was shaky against Oklahoma. That was kind of his first test, but he has shown many flashes of talent. I don't think this game will be a big, passing performance by either team, but I think whichever quarterback ends up being the smartest, not, avoiding turnovers, playing smart football, that's going to be the game. That's going to be the team that wins this game. One of the difference makers, I think, Michigan's been very good in the red zone. They're scoring touchdowns on over 75% of their trips, not just field goals, but touchdowns. Nebraska's red zone defense has been more of a bend but don't break type of thing, but that just means they force a lot of field goals versus touchdowns. I think Michigan's going to be able to punch it in more times than not. And for that reason, I'm going to go Michigan for this game. Based on that, Aaron, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, sure. I still think Michigan played a tough competitive game against Oklahoma, even though they fell short. And I think they're gonna, keep that high play going. And I'm gonna agree with you. I think Michigan finds a way to win.
Yeah.
Yep. And so then, we move on to our 7:30 game that night. You have number 9 Illinois versus number 19 Indiana. When have we seen, two Midwest teams like this ranked this high?
That's true.
It's crazy. Teams are evolving. And so a unit that's really really good on Illinois squad is their defense. They've been suffocating teams. They only have given up about 12 points per game. That's about where you want your defense to be at a pro standpoint.
Yeah.
So their defensive front, they're a nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. They're really physical and relentless. I'm wondering how Indiana's quarterback's going to hold up against that. Fernando Mendoza. He's an experienced player. He can make all the throws that he needs to. He's averaging about 72.4% passing completed this year, and he's thrown 9 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. So seems like a guy who's efficient and makes smart decisions. But he's going to have to be on his A game to beat this Illinois defense. He can't afford to make any mistakes. And then one thing that you have to consider in this game is the offensive line play. This game is going to be one of the trenches. Illinois' defensive line against Indiana's offensive line. If Indiana can't protect their quarterback and, keep him relaxed in the pocket, it's going to be a long night for their offense.
Mm-hmm.
Both teams have reliable field goal kickers, so it could be a low-scoring game, and if it is, it could come down to who's gonna, make those kicks that are 30 and 40 yards, right?
I heard Tennessee had a reliable field goal kicker. We don't have to.
Not a good.
We'll talk
week
about
for
that some
Tennessee.
other time.
Yep. Anyway, why this game matters, right? So this isn't just a battle for Midwest pride. It's it's a potential to spring into the college football playoff talks, right?
Mm-hmm.
For Illinois, if they escape with a win this game, on the rest of their schedule, they don't have to worry about Michigan. They don't have to worry about Oregon or Penn State this year. So they only have to worry about Ohio State, which is a tall task. But
right. They'll have a good win on their resume.
Exactly. Theoretically, it could be a loss too, and they can still sneak in. So,
right.
There's that. And then Indiana, they don't have to worry about Ohio State or Michigan this year. Only Oregon and Penn State stand in their way. So these teams have the potential to,
You think one of these are going to make the CFP?
I think it all depends on how they, stand up against the rest of their conference play. I mean, I don't know if anybody's truly dominant yet, but if somebody shows that they're a dominant team this game and they prove that they can beat anybody in their conference that's mid to lower tier, sure, they got a shot, but you can never tell when you're playing conference foes and rivals. Yep. So my pick for this game is going to have to be Illinois. I watched them a little bit last year, especially in that bowl game against South Carolina. I think I like their squad and I like their defense. So picking Illinois. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to pick Illinois. I think the I'm gonna go back to defense as well. I think the key stat there is the 12 points per game. That's like a magic number. Like you meant, that's under 2 touchdowns. That is a very suffocating defense. Um, yeah, I don't think Indiana's all that, and I think I think the country will finally figure that out again, again this weekend. There is one more 7:30 game that we wanted to talk about. That is Florida at number 4, Miami. So just a little bit of news. Associate head coach Jabbar Jaluluk, he was seen on camera, on video. You've probably seen it on social media, slapping an LSU player before their game last Saturday. I saw the video like last week when it happened, but I didn't realize he actually slapped a player. So he's been suspended for 3 games. I think this just exemplifies the kind of program that Billy Napier is running now at Florida, which is such a far cry from where it used to be, because it used to be you just had murderers on the team. So, there's no discipline, no team mentality, no like thinking about the team's future. It's just, I don't know, people just out there playing football. So I don't think you would see this in a Ryan Day run program. I don't think you would see this in a Steve Sarkisian run program. I don't know. This is just how Billy Napier decides to do things. But in any case, back to the game. The Hurricanes in Miami, they're a juggernaut on offense. So happy for Carson Beck. No bad words against him. They're averaging over 45 points per game. He is, Carson Beck, he is a Heisman candidate. I think last I saw, he's second on the odds leaderboard. And he's got playmakers all over the field that help him out from freshmen to veterans. Their defense has been so much improved since last year, with their defensive line being, an unquestioned kind of strength of this team. Ruben Bain, defensive end, he's rated as one of the top, defensive linemen in the nation, probably going first or second round next year. So they're going up against a weak Florida offensive line. They're going to feast on DJ Lagway, I think. I don't know. I've heard DJ Lagway's dealing with some injuries, so mobility might be an issue. We all saw him throw 5 interceptions last week. So whether that was, bad decision making or his, injury kind of affecting his throwing motion, they're going to get after him. On Florida's side, if there is one bright spot on this team, I think it's going to probably be the secondary. There are multiple future NFL, corners and safeties on this side of the ball. Look for Jordan Castell to kind of be a leader in the backfield and kind of set the tone early. If we know Carson Beck can make mistakes. If it happens, Jordan Castell and his squad, they'll be able to be there and catch those balls or cause any disruption that they can. After last week's performance on offense, I think Florida might rely a little bit more on rushing the ball this week. They only have one running back, though, that has ran for more than 100 yards this whole season. So they're going to have to get more juice out of DJ Lagway and his wide receivers if they even want to keep this one close. But it's hard to bag on Florida week after week, but I think we might have our first back-to-back Saturday champs with Florida. I'm picking Miami. You got any?
Okay.
What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think the life is taken out of this, Florida Gator team pretty early. I'm gonna have to agree with you there, and say that Miami's my pick for the win. That's also a good segue into our underdog of the week, actually.
Okay.
So, for those who don't know, we look at the different FanDuel prize picks, all the different over-unders and spreads, and see who we think that underdog is. This week we couldn't really find a good underdog, but we did find a spread that we didn't necessarily get a warm fuzzy about, right? And that's the 7.5 point spread that Miami has against Florida. We feel as though Miami's going to come in there and dominate. So I don't think, Florida's going to keep the game that close at all. I think it's going to get ugly.
Yeah. So I think that's a good one to buy for sure. Miami 7.5. Not technically an underdog, but if you like money, then that's probably a good one to go after.
Yeah. We're 3-1. We're pretty successful. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that pretty much closes out this episode. So
Episode
next
10.
time, episode 10, 10, double digits. Consistency is key.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, next time, what we're gonna talk about? We're gonna talk about week 4, what happened over the weekend, and we're gonna review it. We're gonna analyze some of the big plays of the weekend, and then we are also gonna talk about who had the Saturday.
Yep.
All right.
For sure.
Yep. So thank you guys for watching First and Short. We will see you next time.
Thanks.